Welcome back to my podcast, Thinking About Life. Today, I have an amazing and powerful guest, Keylee Miracle. She is the creator of the Neurointuitive Method, a healing approach that combines the subconscious, somatic, scientific, and spiritual. She's found that healing doesn't have to be hard to experience results, just tailored to the way each person's brain naturally functions. She amplifies the best of the internal voice with an innovative product suite, unique seminars, and personal services. Her signature process takes a loving, strategic approach to embrace the personal power and is praised by clients across 6 continents. Amazing. I am so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. When you said your title, what went through my head instantly was waking up in the morning, thinking about so many.
I love that.
That's just my
chart ruler is Venus and Gemini, so we're just in the 9th house. So we're really just out here thinking about life.
You're right. She's a
We
philosopher.
really are. I am so excited to have you on because truly your work is very cutting edge, very powerful, and something I am big on is like helping people get in tune with their unique blueprint. So when I saw your phrase, healing doesn't have to be hard, it just has to be tailored, I was like, yes, where's the nail? Put it on the head right there. How did you come to that conclusion?
I think I took a long, hard search for quote unquote healing, and it took me a long time. I went through trying so many modalities over the years, and I'm very grateful for my experience, but I know that it's a different journey for every single person. Every person has different ways that their system is naturally suited to something. And I started stumbling upon that. It's the pieces started to click. So I became known, like in my friend group and my acquaintanceships, like, why don't you ask Keylee, because she's probably tried it.
Mhm.
And especially when it came to like, health and spirituality, or I was always the researcher. So it's like, if you told me a pill, I already knew the research. Like I could pull out the so embarrassing.
Tell me you're a
like,
5'1" without telling me you're a 5'1".
like, yeah, my doctor gave me diclofenac. Oh, okay, diclofenac is this. It's like, because I happened to go down a rabbit hole a couple of years ago, and I know what diclofenac is. So I have like this like kind of encyclopedic brain in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when I started going through my healing journey, I just knew that at the other end there was going to be something. Really, it was just me. There's no just about that. I'm pretty fabulous. But at the other end, there would be, just more of me. But I just remember trying a million things. And then I could pinpoint pretty exactly like, okay, well, this is a good modality. It just was not for me because of this reason. And my friends, when they would come to me, they would be like, should I try this or should I try that? And I'm like, I think you should try this because the way that I know you to be, you would be better suited for this. So I started picking up like an overlap between learning styles and the clairs. And I started picking up on how particular modalities actually move through a person's body and why it would resonate. So once I started noticing the patterns, I kind of was able to systemize that. So that's been like, yeah. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. The way I started my business was I would just annoy my coworkers in the clinic we worked at, and I would just read everyone's chart, and they were like, "Stop and just go start a business, girl." But it was because anytime they'd ask me for advice, because I've always kind of been the like psychology nerd friend, like I have to see your chart. I can't just give you blanket advice. I need to see the see your unique energy, see like what works for
Mhm.
you, what's your unique blueprint, because what works for one person doesn't work for another. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
one modality is bad or wrong just because it didn't work for me. It just didn't work for
Mhm.
me. It wasn't compatible with
Yeah.
me at that moment. And I think that's really powerful. I believe we both have Chiron in our first houses. I'm a Libra rising with Libra and
Mhm.
Chiron, and I think this is my photogenic memory. On Twitter, you shared you have Chiron and Scorpio.
Yes.
Um, and something that's really, I guess, a common societal script at the moment is healing's really hard. Healing is
Huh.
hard work. Healing
Yeah.
takes years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
And while there are definitely instances that may be true,
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to be, is a conclusion I've
Yeah.
come to, and something that you're really the only one of the only other people I've seen talk about this. So I'd love to just hear you riff on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And I love that you used the word compatible earlier because that's really what it is about. Um, and I think because the way that healing has been structured into an industry with, Western medicine leading, and in turn, in the last couple of decades, that's like kind of exalted more behavioral therapies.
Yeah.
That's not always the best way in for people who experience certain types of not only traumas, but just for people who have different neurological systems. Like I have an ADHD diagnosis, I'm ADHD. I'm me, but I have, but that's just how I am coded under the system. Um,
Mm.
the behavioral therapy thing, it's great. It's nice to talk about something. It's nice to have language for particular experiences. But if you are a person who is highly cerebral, if you're a person who's very intellectual, sometimes you need to go back to your body. But back to this healing isn't hard. Healing doesn't have to be hard thing. It can serve as a deterrent for a lot of people. They're like, I don't actually want to, I don't know how to stop this pattern, but I'm not going to try because it's going to take me years and years and years. Especially if you've been holding on to something for years and years and years, you assume that it's going to be the same process to get yourself out of that pattern. And that's not necessarily the truth. There's what I love about, in particular, subconscious work is you really see how so much of what we believe is set up on scaffolding. So if you take out one piece, the whole thing comes down. And
Yeah.
like to some people that's scary, but when you're talking about using it for trauma, I think that's really brilliant because the same way something happened to you in a moment, there's no saying that you can't resolve it in a moment.
Mm.
So, and I've seen that happen enough times in my life that I know it to be a truth.
Yeah.
So when people are available for that being a truth, I think they progress through, healing experiences more rapidly. Um, and rapid isn't necessarily the point, but the relief is the point.
Yeah.
So I think people get really put off by the prospect of like, oh, I'm healing, or they declare themselves to be healing for their entire lives
Mm.
for things that happened very early on, things that happened in adolescence. And it's like, there's more to you than just these happenings. Not saying they're not important, but they're what you're focused on and they're what you see. And it's very easy to get into this narrow sort of view of yourself when you've had a big thing happen to you, but that's not the totality of who you are. So if you can if you can really pinpoint what an experience made you believe, which was originally the point of like most behavioral therapies, but if you can pinpoint what an experience made you believe and you can see like the story that you've been telling after about it, and you can get to the root of that, you can very easily unplug it.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of what I did when I did EMDR. I did it for 1 year, focused on relationships. I had been very single for a few
Mm-hmm.
years, and I was like, people are cute again. Like, let me do a little work to lock in. And so I
That was
spent
very
a
meditative.
year. And that's basically what EMDR is. It's like, what did this traumatic experience make you believe about yourself? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's activate the tappers or whatever, what is it called? Dual, whatever. It's where you activate
Mhm.
both the bilateral stimulation. That's the word I was searching for.
Mhm.
Um, Ponder about that. Okay. And then like just let your brain do the processing. And then what would you
Mhm.
rather believe about yourself? And let's think
Mhm.
about that and let your brain and body do the processing. And I was
Yeah.
actually very delightfully surprised at when I started dating again, how just easy it was. And before then, it had
Mhm.
never really been so easy. There
Mhm.
was all like I had always been very I'm very Leo, so I have like this big ego energy, and like I was like, I don't crush on boys, and I would be like just very sassy to the boys that I liked. If I liked
Mhm.
you, I didn't want to make you think I liked you. I would just do all this
Oh.
shenanigans,
Uh-huh.
very avoidant attachment energy. And when I
Mhm.
started dating, it was just very easy. It was very straightforward. And I actually found my partner. My partner is the second person I went on a dating app date with ever in my life. I was like, well, welcome to my life. That was so
Yeah.
easy. Um, but I think what that healing did is it really set me up for that secure attachment. Like it was
Yeah.
very much easier to catch myself. I'm like when we first became official, I was like, I don't know how to be a girlfriend. This is so uncomfortable. And I was like, this is literally a made up problem. I'm just like
Yes,
thinking,
you.
and this is
Right.
a made
Yeah.
up problem. And so I
Yes.
was able to catch myself
Mhm.
and redirect my behavior, redirect my energy to be like, what do
Mhm.
I actually want here and how do I navigate this?
Yes. Yeah. And what you're talking about, like activating the hemispheric activation, that's what when you say that your focus is narrowed, it is literally narrowed
Mhm.
in your brain. Like you are in foveal view. So when you're activating, when you're reconnecting, you're actually able to essentially activate the periphery. And that allows you to believe more. That allows you to like you said, influence what you believe, and change again a narrative. That I love that you I love that you said that, because I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. Avoidant attachment. Like,
I was
and it's
so
like if I like
savage.
you, I have to act like I don't like you, because that wouldn't be very P of me to like you in really
Yeah, no,
in really
literally.
ways.
My boyfriend from
But
college would sometimes be like, do you even like me? I was like, yeah.
oh,
Sorry, my Venus Mars conjunction is just loud. What can I say? My bad,
I'm so
guy.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, but that's real, because and I think once you have that solid sort of knowledge of yourself, you don't need the full picture, but like once you know you can go there, life just becomes like life just gets easier to navigate. And you stop being afraid of like something's coming to take you, like you're not going to lose yourself, like so
Mhm.
that definitely allows you to be more available for more pleasant experiences in
Definitely.
life. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think that's something that like trauma or even just trauma, I feel like is such a spectrum. So I say trauma kind of broadly, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
it can make us do is just one track minded or like this is the way
Mm-hmm.
it'll be always. I'm curious in your work with people over the years, what are some of the biggest like reoccurring themes that you notice with your clients?
uh I think why I've honed in on power is
Mhm.
because that's a very clear place of distortion for most people. And when you think about power, it's really foundational to relating. Um, Before anybody goes, yes, this is why I have to manipulate him. No, it's, it's really foundational to like how you essentially gather your sense of place. It's how you decide to be in any sort of dynamic. Like you have a relationship to absolutely everything. So when your sense of power is distorted, like your sense of personal power, either you think it's not as much as it is, or you overestimate it, or you don't know how far it can go. That's where I see a lot of people have problems. And it shows up at work, shows up in relationships, family dynamics, romantic relationships, friendships, um, like pretty much everything in my lens. This is very Scorpio rising me.
Mhm.
It comes down to power for a lot of people. It's like if I'm vulnerable here, I'm going to lose. And some people think of like life in terms of winning and losing, like a lot of the time, and you see that show up over and over again. And usually the decision has come a lot earlier than they're conscious of. So it's like I never win. Things never go well for me. Da, 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 da. Like, and that's
Mhm.
just like deep, deep, deep back of the mind thinking, but it's the running undercurrent. So basically, I just see a lot of issues of power often. I
Mhm.
think I can't affect the situation. Yeah, well, okay, you can affect the situation if you're in it. Whether that means you leave or you turn your hand to something,
Mhm.
if you're there, you have some degree of power. It's
Mhm.
up to you to be aware of it. And also only like thinking that you have power when you're under threat. Like there's a more holistic sort of relationship that needs to be present at all times. So I see a lot of people who haven't really developed that, or they have, but it's not in their favor.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see everything as very relational. Just as a Libra rising, that's just my
Mm-hmm.
approach to everything is like
Mm-hmm.
everything's a relationship and we can work
Mm-hmm.
on things from there. And then my Scorpio moon really resonates with the power piece. I think a book that
Mm-hmm.
changed my brain chemistry was Power versus Force by David
Hmm.
Hawken. And he basically, the overall theme of the book is what we think of as power in the world is actually force. You know,
Yes.
these billionaires who just can't get enough because even if they're
Yeah.
got all this material resource, they're still operating from scarcity. And so it's a
Yeah.
lot of power over versus power
Mm-hmm.
with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I feel like I'm constantly working on is my relationship with power. Shout out to your sacral activation and power 101. I have it go off at 3 a.m. while I'm sleeping every night.
Oh God.
Yeah.
You have to show me how to do that, right?
I got you.
Thank you. I'm always learning from my clients. Y'all do some interesting stuff with the work. Someone was like, I'm in the sauna. I put it on. I had to put it on the loudspeaker. I'm like,
Mia
okay,
acupuncture, okay? Mia acupuncture. They're like, do you need any music? I'm like, I'm okay, thank you. Like,
I'm good. I brought my own.
I mean, you can play that ocean music in the background if you want, but yes.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, it really is. I love hypnotherapy. I was
Mm,
trained in it a couple years ago, and
mm,
I come from a background of meditation. So I was like, oh,
mhm.
hypnotherapy is just like very directed version like of
Yeah.
taking meditation and using it with the subconscious mind. And I was like, this is so
Hmm.
rich, scrumdiddlyumptious. Um, with power in the Human Design Center. Excuse me. My Gemini ass is so unserious, sorry. But in human design, one of the power centers is the solar plexus, and both of us
Mhm.
have this completely open. And so, while it is definitely the emotional center, and people who have this completely open or even just undefined are going to feel a lot of emotions from other people, this also
Mhm.
leads to, I think, a lesser talked about part of this center is the power. It is the being able
Mm.
to cultivate a lot of wisdom through observing other people and how they navigate power
Yeah.
through the solar plexus.
Yeah.
I am curious. In one of the tracks, you mentioned you were like, this is where I started with my work, and this is now where I'm coming back to my
Mm.
work with power. Um, what was kind of that journey of like starting with it, doing other things and then coming back to it?
Oh, great question. I just kind of, it was like a meditation. I took a walk. No, yeah. I feel like with meditation, I like that you were saying what you were saying about like hypnotherapy being kind of more like a laser
Yes.
focused meditation. Because I love meditation too. I like the idea of like, okay, you can sort of meander a bit, and where you need to get to, you will get to. And there's a degree of um, patience and power and focus that also requires. But you're right, it's like a slightly different application.
Yeah.
I like hypnotherapy with the feedback, because sometimes, people do like the robotic, they'll do like robotic, what do they kids call it? Robotic affirmations, right? But I like to take more of a question-based approach so that it's more tailored to you. Yeah. Because like you have like a response with yourself. It's like you start getting into dialogue. And I have a Libra Mars, and I was talking about this morning. And I was like, I really see it as like diplomacy. It's like I'm going to treat with all the parts, like treating trauma. I'm going to treat as in like make a treaty, make a deal, make a relationship with all of the parts that feel like they have to be present here. And if we can come to some consensus, then we're in good shape, right? So when I started my work, it was just getting a sense of, well, I don't want to be white knuckling through life. I don't want to feel like I'm just being swatted about and I'm just trying to hold on. And every now and then something good happens. Like, that's not how I want to relate to life. So, and what you're talking about with the solar plexus too, like seeing a lot of people go through their life journeys and often bring you back souvenirs, whether it's their like emotions, their teachings, just who they've become or who they think they've become, just kind of learning how to navigate that when you're a kid. For me, my experience when I was a kid, that was a lot harder because, when somebody has a perspective, to them, that's their fact. That's their truth. Like when somebody has a perspective. So, I would get all these edicts and I'm like, I don't think that applies to me, but maybe it does. Enough people believe it. Maybe it does. Maybe that's just the way the world is. Maybe that's how life works, I guess. And I never really got over that kind of, I guess, but for a long time I tried to like kind of conform, because again, solar plex, this is your quote unquote identity. But then it became this sort of practice of like, okay, well, let me sift, let me filter. What is me? What is not me? And that's where you start engaging with power on a more intimate basis. Like, who do I actually believe that? No. Oh, so I have the power to reject that as a belief for myself. What do I want to believe? Oh, I have the power to accept that as a belief for myself. How do I want life to work for me? Are there theoretically people in this world where life works like that for them? Yes. Okay, so then it's possible. I have the power to do X, Y, and Z. So I think a lot of I was very much like I was very much in my activist bag when I was in like high school and college, more so high school, which is hilarious. It's very, very Saturn. I front loaded a lot. And now I'm just kind of like, okay. But I did like a lot of like serious like activism work and just looking at systems and, if I, to an extent, activism is an affirmation that you can change a system, which is important and potent and needs to be there always, Aquarius. But it can also reinforce this idea that you are under a system's thumb. So I felt myself like grappling with that for many, many years. And then I went to college and I didn't have the best experience and I didn't feel like my administration was very supportive of me. So it was just like, I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to make it through. And then I was like, wait, I don't want my life to be like that. So I started, this is how I used healing for avoidance at first. And then it started bringing me closer to myself. And then with my business, I wanted to help people avoid the avoidance stage. Wait, you could just come here. I feel like a lot of people who have gone through something and have come out on the other side, there's really like these these moments of fog, and maybe they're necessary, I don't know, but you know, they have these moments or sometimes entire years where their one focus is like, I have to heal, I have to heal, I have to heal, and they're not using the modality that's actually right for them, so they're kind of just like running at a brick wall over and over again. So I'm like, okay, well, what if we could find a trapdoor? Like, what if we we could do this? So I tried to find like when I'm creating a track, I'm finding the trapdoor with you. And your specific trapdoor, because it's not the same for everyone. It's like, oh, and people will tell me like when they listen to the tracks over and over again, I've had this experience because I get high on my own supply. Like I've had this experience where a certain line will stand out, and I never heard it that way before. You know, a line will stand out to me, and it wasn't relevant to my life before. So then I'm having this experience of, wait, that just unlocked something for me. Mm-hmm. And then I'm able to proceed because maybe it wasn't top of mind. That's another thing. Whenever you've gone through something, it's okay if like healing isn't your number one task, because there is this aspect, okay, well, we have to survive. But if we can get you to the thriving, I think that we would have a much happier world. And it definitely, it has a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me of in 2022, I basically got this stop sign from the universe that was like, if you don't fucking pause right now and just stop working, we will beat you up because you're already keep getting sick. And so I was like, fine, Jupiter and Capricorn ass, like, all right, I won't work. And you know, I got a good part-time job and just like kind of chilled and really didn't do any active healing for a while. You know, the ninth house is the house of astrology, and Mars was going retrograde in there, and Mars rules my second house, which is money. So I was like, well, I still had clients that I was working with on the back end. I didn't do any marketing. I didn't do any, I wasn't even on Instagram for 7 months. I think I popped in once to post a pic, and I was like, okay. It was like, reminder I'm cute, bye. And that was it. But in that time, I was like, healing is so I can live. Healing is so I can have a good life. Like meditation and whatnot is not here to be a fucking chore, because that is what it had turned into. I need to do my inner child work so I can do XYZ in my business. And like, what does my inner child need? I was like, I was turning into a toxic parent to myself, because it was like what I was supposed to do as a healer and and what's the astrology of this and what's the this of that and and I was like, how about I just trust myself and chill the fuck out? And I think during that year I just learned how to do makeup and learned all about skincare and just all these other random things, and just gave myself space to exist. And I was like in awe of like that. I was like, this is integration. I was like, meditation for me is now going on a walk and just looking at the trees. And it's not me having to do this regimented, specific thing. And yeah, I just feel like a lot of the conversation about healing, it's a forever thing. It's a healing journey. You're never over with it. Etc. etc. It's gonna take time. It's like, but like, what's the point of all this if you're not actually feeling good or on the path to feeling good, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I'm constantly going, well, what about like, this is just living. What about life? Like,
I'm just living life, okay?
Yeah. No, this is exactly what I mean though. Like people really get stuck. And I spent years, like again, with this, this toxic parent to your own inner child. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to be the most healed person that ever existed. And I'm going to show
like, bitch, stop smothering me.
it gets competitive too. That's one thing I noticed. Like, it's
Mhm.
competitive. You need to be healing. And it's like, I don't want to take on the cadence or anything, but it's like, you need to put on 10 bracelets and you need a big hat, like a floppy hat or a fedora. And you need
If
to be
not, your
barefoot.
heart chakra's not aligned.
It's not aligned, period. And you need to be in a white t-shirt, jeans, and show your toes so that people think you're earthy, but also rich and
Right.
like there's so much posturing that I think people again lose the plot. It's like the
Mhm.
point is you. I say this so often. I think people think they're like, what does she mean by that? So many people be like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, huh? The point is you. You're not doing this for me. You're not doing, and this is, ooh. Okay, so this morning I read something and it was an Olympian, and she was talking about how, she was running, for people who look like her and people who do this and that, and people who were counted out and people who were, and I was like, where were you in this?
Mm.
It's okay to be proud of yourself. I come from a faith tradition. Like, I was, oh my God. So I grew up with a lot of things in the pot, but I was, I spent a lot of time in unity. And one of the things that you're taught is like, there isn't really a devil. It's like, it's unhealthy ego,
Mm.
really. Like, there's no devil. There's no, like, you have so much choice over what you choose to believe and where you choose to go. And of course, there are certain points where I've kind of like, maybe I'm thinking differently, right? But that's one thing that's always stuck with me. But at the same time, there has to be that distinction of like, okay, there's unhealthy ego and then there's ego. And you need healthy ego plus your soul to be you. You
Yeah.
came here to be a specific you this incarnation, if you believe in reincarnation or not. It's like you came here to be you in this lifetime. So there does have to be some consideration of who you are. And this is another thing where the power dynamics can get skewed because you stop thinking of yourself as like a whole entity, like a whole person. So you don't think you're allowed to set uh, parameters on certain parts of your life because you think it's too selfish. You think you just don't think that you're allowed. It's kind of like if you never had a mirror, I don't know how aware you'd be of like your personhood. I don't know. I just think of this. I think of this in terms of you're kind of a soul like operating in a body, and it's very easy to forget that you have the body,
Yeah.
or at least it is. It's very easy to forget you have the body if you're not, paying attention to it a little bit. And then once you pay enough attention to it, it stops being conscious. Like, you really just like drop down into it and you're like, okay, cool, getting to operate in the world, awesome, this is why you came. But back to, it's just living. The point is you. Somebody asked me the other day as well, like, when you say be yourself, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know if I can explain that to you right now. I don't, it was a very grown man, a friend of a friend, and I was like, I don't know if I can really explain that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how I'd explain it either. It's like it's being in connection with yourself and just being with that aliveness. And I'm like, that also kind of sounds a little woo-woo, but it's just that it is just what
It's the
it
truth.
is. Yeah.
You can't make it any simpler. You can't make it any more complicated. That is what it is. So it's like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of Aquarius placements, and I really relate to what you were saying about just thinking things differently. Like I remember, so I was a little brown kid who grew up in Texas in a post 9/11 world. And my
Fun.
very fun. And one of like these core memories I have is so my brother has disabilities, and so my mom was like networking and like just trying to find resources. And one
Mhm.
of these networking moments we ended up going to a white Baptist church, and I went to the
Oh,
Sunday school section, and I was quite literally the only non-white child in there. So it was like very interesting environment, not what I was used to at all, because I grew up in Houston, and
mm-hmm.
Houston is very diverse, just to say the least. I was like, I didn't even know there were spaces like this. But I remember the Sunday school teacher is saying something, and the math was just not mathing in my mind. So I raised my hand and asked a
Uh-oh.
question. She didn't even answer it. She just looked at me and was like, and moving on. Um I was
Wow.
just like, oh, so like not everyone asks questions. Not everyone like you're not
No,
supposed
you
to
swallow
like
it.
be curious about like why, what, where, who, why, when, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I as a child, it would kind of that quality about myself would frustrate me. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why
Just
can't I
accept it.
just
Yeah.
accept things and just,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I would be angry as a child with my little Scorpio moon. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, growing up, I had like I was big into activism in high school and in college.
Mm-hmm.
I studied public health briefly, and like that changed
Mm-hmm.
my life. But now as an adult, it's so funny because I am so much more chill. I am so
Yep.
much more like, I guess, even youthful, because I was like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so responsible all the time as a
Yeah.
kid. And as an adult, obviously I'm still responsible, but there is just this lightness that I didn't have growing up. And
Yeah.
sometimes I hear people be like, "Oh, I wish I could be a teenager again." I was like, "Girl, not me."
Oh.
No.
You couldn't pay me.
No. I was like, "College, I'm good." I also had a really difficult college experience, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I wanted to love college so bad. I was like, I don't know if college loves me.
That's really what felt. Mhm.
Yeah, I really went to college and majored in trauma. Each semester was like, here is a dramatic life event. And I was just like, all right, well, I survived. Um,
All relatable content.
oh my gosh. I'm curious how if someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, be myself. That's not clicking. How could someone identify that disconnection with their power, and like how
Mhm.
can they support themselves in that?
Ooh. Uh, really simple way, not not lying to yourself. No. Um, but
That too.
uh, but you can start with when I say don't lie to yourself, one of the easiest ways to start with that is being honest when you don't like something.
Mm,
That's a really good place to start with power. I don't like that. Okay. Is that compulsory? And you'll find it never is. It never is. It may take some wiggling to remove yourself from a potential situation. It might be the work of a moment too. You never know. But just like being honest about where your taste buds are. Like, I don't really like that.
mhm,
Okay. I don't care if your whole family likes it. I don't care if your friends like it. You don't like it? Cool. That's valid. You can do something with that. That's valuable information. Um, so just being honest about when those moments come up for you. Um, there's like a lot of discourse about being a hater. And I'm like, it's just not necessary. But you can just be like, I don't really like something.
mm,
Great. It's not really anybody's business but yours. Like, I don't like this. Great. So change it. It's your life. You're allowed to like your life. You're allowed to enjoy yourself. You're allowed to have fun with the time that you've been given here. Um, so that's one place I would start. Also, just getting back into the body. If you're not a person who really I think, again, meditation is another thing that gets distorted. People think like, oh, I have to sit cross-legged and I have to create an altar. And it's like, you may want to do that. I don't know. Is that really you? Is that your tradition? Is that, I was like, yeah.
Yep.
But I got to sit cross-legged. I have to put on the timer. I have to have, um, a white lady talking in a very slow voice, like in my ear. I'm sorry, I just said it. Like talking in a very
Incense,
slow voice.
fire, incense, smoke in the air.
Yeah, yeah. And she has a different name now. I don't want to belittle that, but it's just it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But like maybe you don't want to sit somewhere for 20 minutes, but again, if it's a thing that you're avoiding, I would look at that too. If you feel very uncomfortable when you don't have any noise, and like I want to be respectful to, I definitely have the ADHD thing going on, but if you feel uncomfortable when there's no one to talk to, or when there's nothing to do, or when again there's not a pressing demand or noise in your space, like I would really assess that, because you actually do need space. You need to create space to hear yourself.
Mm.
And eventually if you practice this enough, you don't really always need to set aside time. Like again, it's not like marking your calendar and this is my daily chore, and load the dishwasher, meditate for 30 minutes. Like you don't have to necessarily do that, but there is a period where you need to get comfortable with knowing what your voice sounds like. I like the more direct interventions, especially if that's difficult for someone. I like the tracks for that, because it's really like, okay, it's not a long period of time. Give it 10-15 minutes and just be present with it. It's okay if you drift off a little, but just be present with it so that you can hear yourself. And that's also what be honest about what you don't like is about, because it's very easy to just always be running a loop of other people's voices.
Yeah.
And their opinions and their feelings and their thoughts and their beliefs. And it's like, you may share some of them, but it's up to you to like come to that, especially when you become an adult.
Agreed. I feel like there is so much noise in this world, and it's like a great thing in that if you want to research pretty much anything, it's at your fingertips, and there is an abundance of information out there. But it can really turn into noise. I have an undefined ajna and head center. And so I am very sensitive to like taking in too much information, too many opinions. And
Yeah.
that's when I would notice I would be the most confused. And I have a cycle authority, and my authority, and with the defined spleen, defined heart, like when I'm clear about what I want, I know it.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of the, you know, in high school, what do I want to be when I grow up? I guess I'll be a doctor because that's what my parents want, and I don't really know. And I was like, Neha, you were obsessed with AP Psych. Like, what was not clicking?
Yeah. Yes.
That was the thing that excited you the most.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see it because I was so lost in the sauce of everyone's noise. And I think that's what meditation really gave me. And here's my secret. Here's the real tea about meditation. It's not even about what practice you do. And you're not ever supposed to, like, it's not like you never get distracted. The sauce is literally you get distracted and then you come back. And then you notice, oh, I'm distracted again. And then you come back. And it's just practicing that again and again and again. And whether you do that with, a hypnotherapy track where it is, directed and guided and you have something to pay attention to, or whether it's more open-ended, or you just even go on a walk and just look around, EMDR, a big thing of that is bilateral stimulation. And I think I read the woman who founded it was, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read this a couple years ago, that she was looking at the trees. And if you look both ways, and you're looking at nature,
Mm.
that is the eye movement part of the,
Yeah.
eye movement desensitization therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there are so many ways to practice being present. And yeah, for
Yeah.
some people it's swimming, running, walking,
Mm-hmm.
sitting, all these ways. And yeah, it's about coming to yourself, not about the practice.
Yeah. 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 And you choose the practice that works for you. You find it. And that's the exploratory phase. And yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes. That's another thing people forget too. People are like, oh, you're on a healing journey for the rest of your life. You're on a life journey. You're on a living journey. So it's like the things that used to connect you may change.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yes. How does life feel different for you right now compared to when you were disconnected from your power and from yourself?
I don't have anxiety.
Mm.
I don't know what that is. No. Yeah, I used to feel like I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Um, and that comes with hypervigilance, and it comes with just all sorts of uh, psychosomatic symptoms, and just like you can really hurt yourself in that disconnect. Or I mean, sometimes it felt like total numbness, where it's like I can't really enjoy. It's like you'd call it anhedonia. Like I can't really enjoy my life. Because you're constantly waiting for your life to start, or you're constantly waiting for something to go wrong. And it really disconnects you from your, I don't want to say your path, because that is your path. You're always walking your path, whatever. But it disconnects you from pleasure, joy, things that you could be creating, things that you could be doing, things that you could just having a more enjoyable experience. So for me, when I say I don't have anxiety, it's like, okay, when I'm doing something new, I already know my process of like doing something new. I
Mm.
already know, like, if I need to know, I'm going to know. And that's like my need motivation. That was important for me.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because I think people will teach you like a strategy of fear, just like that's the common sort of thinking. And don't get me wrong, I have the 5-1, so I still like to do my research, and I still like to know how things typically work.
Yeah.
But the ability to be like, okay, well, this is the piece that I need to know, and this is where I can focus, this is where I can operate. That's a very powerful thing.
Mm.
This is what I can influence. So all of the other stuff is like you were saying, like that's noise. I have a defined notch and I have an open head. So it's like I can usually be like, okay, that's the right. That's for me to know, that's for me to address, that's for me not to, like, that's not my business. And then that's a discipline piece, because you can still know that something's not your business and respond to it. I had to learn that.
Mm.
Like it's no.
Yeah.
I get very good at being like, no, I can see exactly what you're doing, and I can see where you are believing something that's not really helping you, but it's not for me to intervene. It's not for me to say anything right now. It's not for me to try to teach you, because that's when teaching gets arrogant, and teaching is
Mm.
not an arrogant sort of activity. Um, but anyway, like, so if you ever see me push back on someone in public, it's like I really got the call to push back on them.
Yeah.
Okay. But but Libra Mars. I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Can't we all just
Okay, Spirit. Fine.
fine, but I don't know. I just enjoy my life a lot more. I know what to do, and I know like
Mm.
who I am, and I know that continuously expands. And if it shifts, I'm okay with that too. I don't really feel the need to cling to anything.
Mm.
Um, and that to me is really powerful, because I keep using the word powerful because it is powerful. Um, I don't need to cling to anything, because I don't have any real belief in scarcity.
Mm.
I already know that it's in my power to create whatever I need to create. I know that it's in my power to be whoever I need to be for what I want to do. And I'm more comfortable. And it's funny because I can really see it. Once you become comfortable in yourself, you can see how many people have spent their whole lives walking on eggshells. And it's really like a moment of gratitude, not condescension, but gratitude, because it's like it really very easily, that's where you could have stayed.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you could have stayed. You could still choose to root into it. It would be very, very difficult because of the way that I've coded my subconscious. It would be very, very difficult to tap back into that. But again, it is a life choice that I could have made.
Yeah. When you were talking about, you can just say, I don't like that, or this is not for me. I was like, younger me really needed that because younger me was
Yeah.
so like, you know, disconnected from just as simple as your likes and dislikes.
Mm-hmm.
This is even funny. Like if I knew a guy was crushing on me, I think this is my open solar plexus, then I would start to feel feelings of crushing on them. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't even like them, but why am
I
I
don't even like
feeling
you.
this?
Right.
I
Yep.
am confused,
Yep.
and yeah, it really can be
Mm-hmm.
so simple.
Mm-hmm. I used to do that. Yeah. I used to let my partners choose me. And it's not like there shouldn't be like a choosing going on,
Yeah.
but I really used to let people just be like, well, I guess he likes me. What?
Mhm. Yep.
And you start going down the list. It's like, well, they do that such and such and such, and it's like I'm practical in that way. Like, you start going down the list of, well, these are the traits, and it's like, I guess I should like him, but it wasn't organic, and you
No.
didn't. So don't pursue that because it has to light you up, and if it doesn't, no. And especially if you're a person who has like an abundance of love in you, it's very easy to get into those cycles because it's like, of course of course I have love to share. It's like, what does that mean? You're not, this is again I'm doing this for everyone else but me. Like you're not just a vessel for whatever else. Um,
That's so real.
yeah. And when you
I
were talking about,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
when you were talking about AP Psych, like that's what lit you up. That's what interested in you. That's what interested you. You need to give kids permission to strengthen that impulse and to feel that. So if you grow up with parents who didn't really get to have that level of choice and autonomy, it can be a journey to like integrate that into yourself. Like I grew up with parents who were raised in British colonies, so like that very kind of rigid, compulsory education system, and you make big decisions. You're super young, and the course of your life is defined. By the time like you took some exams at 16, and now the course of your life is that way.
Mm-hmm.
No, like so growing up, and that there's an adjustment there, especially when they came to America. There's an adjustment there. So having that freedom, and I feel like my parents absolutely wanted me to have the freedom to pursue whatever I wanted, but of course you can't just throw everything that you were conditioned in or that you learned out of the window. So I would subtly feel the pressure, to try to do something a little bit more practical. Especially, I'm extremely practical and I'm extremely whimsical, both at the same time. And especially when you're a girl and you're growing up to be a woman, they the common party line is to demonize the whimsy in you. You're silly, you're not so smart, you're all these things. It's like you have to prove that you're smart, you have to prove that you're serious to be taken seriously and respected. So you try to suppress the whimsy. And it's like that's also like, part of how your sacral gets really shut down. You try to suppress the whimsy, and it's like that's not saying there isn't serious material in the whimsy. I am very serious. I want my burger this way. I'm very, very serious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll be like, just the things that make you you, and you shutting them down to get some kind of outcome, get some sort of reward because you can't see the power dynamic clearly. Um, and that persists like into adulthood. When you're a kid, obviously your power has more checks on it.
Yeah.
You don't really have rights per se. And that's sad, but that is currently the system. We can change it. I hope we do. I'm going to change it with my kids, but you know, and I'm sure, you know what? Our parents said the same thing. Our parents said the same thing, in different ways. But yeah, I'm just really, I'm very serious about your right to be your full self and your right to be playful and joyful and all those things and still be quote unquote taken seriously. And how you do that is taking yourself seriously.
Yeah. My sister is 14 years younger than me, so basically that's my child. And it is so amazing seeing her come into her own and seeing the patterns be broken. It's like so just beautiful and powerful, and just being able to, she really believes she could just do anything. She'll just be like, I want to learn how to crochet, and just learns how to crochet, or I want to learn how to do this random thing, does it. And I was like, at your age, I didn't have that. And so just
They're on
looking at,
YouTube. Right. Yeah.
and even the way she sets boundaries with me, I think there was a day that I was being sassy on a road trip because my parents, eldest daughter syndrome of an immigrant family, they were just being ridiculous with me. So I said something sassy to my sister, and she was like, I don't like when you say that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, and I won't say that again. I was like, heard.
Right.
It's just so powerful because, yeah, sometimes I'm like, does this work? And then I just look at my sister and I'm like, yep. Or even I'll tell my partner stories about my mom before all this work, and he's like, that doesn't even sound like the same person.
Like her.
It's like,
Yeah.
I know, I was the cog in the machine that just took us in a different direction because yeah, and honestly, not engaging in things just because they are the way that they are, game changer. It is, yeah, you will receive friction most likely. You will receive like people, definitely a lot of tough conversations, but just not engaging your energy in certain patterns.
I don't even assert that anymore.
What do you mean?
I don't even assert the friction piece anymore. I'm very, I don't know, it's the autocratic side of me.
I love it.
I don't even assert the friction piece. I'm like, this is just how it is. This is just how it is. And surprisingly, I really don't get friction.
You're Libra Mars. You're like,
yeah, I'm just not available for it. I'm like, okay. So when you say Libra Mars, I kind of had the understanding, like I figured out, like I'm always going to get what I want. It's the process. It's the process, like how the process is going to go. So like people can have their opinions and they can hold their space for their opinions. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want. And once I got that, like I stopped putting all of these intermediaries, putting all these boulders in the path. It's like, because that's how it used to be. It's very like a very Saturnian understanding of life for me, where it was just kind of like, well, it may be hard, but I'm going to get there. That's why I also like don't resonate with like the healing is hard thing too, because it's like, well, funnily enough, it gets easier once you say it's going to be easier. And for a long time, I spent so many years thinking like, oh my God, this is hard work, blah, 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 to make it worthwhile. But it's like, I'm already worthwhile. So do I really want to deal with this? And it's like, no. So
something that clicked for me
yeah,
was like, even if I don't feel worthy, doesn't mean I'm not worthy. So I can still have the thing I want. Even if, even if a part of me feels some type of way.
Yeah.
Okay, that part can feel some type of way and I can still get what I want.
Yeah. No, yeah. So it's like, again, the treaty table where you have these parts too, and it's like, well, okay, well, this is saying that that's unsafe. Sometimes you just got to ask, is that true? Like, that's my favorite question. Is that true? And if it's like, it's true only for you, great, we're going this way. Thank you for sharing your opinion.
Mhm.
This is really how I deal with my parts. I'm like, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Love you. Thank you for your service. However, your service is no longer required. And I
CEO has spoken. Um,
yeah.
that reminds me I've been in the Love Island sphere
Oh.
for this current season, and it's been really fun. I don't really watch that many dating or reality shows, but when I do, I
Mhm.
get immersed in it. And
I love that.
the one of the girls, Leah, she blew up and became very, very
Mhm.
popular, and
Mhm.
she's Persian. And to a white girl was, I guess, acting scared on the show. Her name's Kaylor, and Leah goes, "Is she white woman scared?" Because she was acting, and so because of that, da 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 da, and Kaylor's man is a whole mess. And he posted a story where in the background, one of Kaylor's friends said something like, Leah's not going to be relevant in 6 months or something. And the man that Leah ended up with, Miguel, someone asked him about that on a live, and he's like, everyone has opinions, but not everyone's opinions matter.
Fact.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't have to matter to you. It
Yeah,
matters to them, and that's enough.
that's enough.
That's part
Yeah.
of me like respecting myself. It's like when I have like that my path is enough, your path is enough, like that's enough. Like, so,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I give that to myself when sometimes I'm just done with emotions, where I'm like, I felt my feelings. That's enough.
good.
We're gonna go
Yeah,
eat something and move on.
we're cool.
We're cool. Which, as a
Good
Scorpio
meeting.
moon, that's been
Oh yeah.
called
Ooh.
growth.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Like
Oh,
I'm gonna actually dwell on this and turn this over for 5 years.
yes. I'm
Let's not
sorry.
do that.
I'll just think of 80-year-old me, and I was like, does 80-year-old me want me to spend my time doing this? No.
Right.
Moving on.
Is it gonna matter? Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on. Wow, this has
Hmm.
been such an incredible conversation. I just have a last couple questions for you.
Yes.
One of my favorite sayings of yours is evaluate the exchange. And
Uh-huh.
I feel like we've touched on pieces of this already, but I would love for you to just riff on that briefly.
Yeah, evaluate the exchange. It's my most Libra Mars saying. Evaluate the exchange. It's like, okay, I'm going to be in a dynamic with all things. So sometimes there's a moment where you have to zoom out
Mm.
and evaluate the exchange. It's like, what am I putting in here and what am I getting out here? And I think this is particularly important for women because our socialization is very, very different
Yes.
than that. It's very different. It doesn't really allow you to, again, see yourself as like this whole entity in an exchange with something. There's kind of this compulsory selflessness and compulsory just like pouring out of, and you can say this is like a sacral thing. It's like a compulsory pouring out of your goodness, your essence, your whatever, because
Yeah, your life
you're supposed
force.
to make the world flower, and you're supposed to like stream flowers in your wake, and da, 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 like,
Being a
but
mom is
evaluate.
so thankless. Not if I'm going to be a mom.
Okay, okay, I do not agree. That agreement, I do not agree. I
No.
will not. Right, right.
Unavailable for that to be a
Unavailable for
thankless
that.
job.
Right, for that dynamic. So just like reasserting the power that you have to not only cultivate your dynamics, but shift them as needed, and making sure that when you are entering into anything with a person, place, or thing, that you're clear on the exchange.
Mm.
Um, People have often issues with this concept because of a fear of being transactional,
Mm.
but everything is an exchange.
Mhm.
There's like, in physics, there's this concept of work, like you put something in, something comes out, and it's like that's it's okay to have that sort of expectation. It's okay to value your input and expect some sort of output. And when something is quote unquote transactional, if you know yourself to be ethical, if you know yourself to be a person who cares about yourself and who has no intentions of harming anyone, there's really not an issue with you stopping to prioritize yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to couch it in those terms, but I know for some people that's an intermediary step
Yeah.
where it's like, actually, I'm not a terrible person for considering what I'm getting out of this exchange,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes sense. Your time is value, your presence is value, your attention has value. Those are your sources of power. So what are we doing? If now is your moment that you have control over, you better make sure it's going through something, going to something that matters to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really powerful. I feel like a lot of your work is awakening people's autonomy, being like, ah,
Yes.
I have power. I am an
Mm-hmm.
autonomous person. I can choose differently.
Yeah.
I have this like the core of my business is the phrase like public health starts with the individual, like just this idea of if we want to create
Yes.
a healthy world, like it's like
Mm-hmm.
individuals create communities and communities create the collective, and
Mm-hmm.
all of those layers need to be healthy for everything to be healthy. And
Yeah.
for me, I like working with individuals and communities through, astrology, human design, meditation, energetics, blah, 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 all the things.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about your work is the it's a both and of the autonomy and the interconnection. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes people are really oriented towards the interconnection. We're all
Mm-hmm.
oneness. Or it's, oh, my personal sovereignty and da 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 da, and like
Mm-hmm.
literally no one else is considered in that. And so I love
Mm-hmm.
the way Libra Mars, okay, bridging the both and there. It's really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was done with care because I really do believe, you know, this is that and unity and that too. And also you need to be a healthy individual because that's ultimately where every dynamic starts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In the artist's way, I think she includes a quote in there that's like, every blade of grass has an angel next to it saying, grow, grass, grow, grow, or something like that.
Oh.
I thought that was such a beautiful visual. Like, we all have that too.
Yeah.
We're all little
Yeah.
flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my last question for you is as
Mm-hmm.
deepen into the things, as you keep growing and evolving, like where are you? Like what's currently shifting or present for you right now and where are you headed?
Yeah. So I took a step back from one-on-one work for the most part because I think I'm more interested again in um, kind of deepening the impact on a collective level as well.
Yeah.
So I've been, I have like a lot more things that I'm just giving to the public. I have more offerings that are for people to have their own experience with rather than me, because I feel just like I don't doesn't have to be this way. That's another thing that I realized this last week. But when I'm, channeling or when I'm in session, sometimes it's very taxing on my body.
Mm.
Um, like sometimes when I'm reading, I have a 102 fever. I'm like really like I'm
Mhm.
channeling. So I really did ask, like, does it have to be that way for me anymore? Do you need the physical evidence anymore? Because I think that was a piece of it. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, you need to, it's almost like a show your work thing.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how much of that was, well, it's definitely ancestral because I know my great grandmother used to experience this too. But it was
Mhm.
like, do I have to proceed in that way? So it was just like very taxing on my body. Anyway, but all of that is to say, I felt very precious over my personal time. because right now I think my personal life is expanding as well. And I'm just like, I need more of my energy, and the exchange wasn't what it used to be. And I just think I'm guided to do more small group work, more work with just the public. So anyway, all of that is to say, I'm definitely in a transition point too. And I felt like I definitely hit a milestone yesterday. I don't know what was going on, but I felt it. Actually, yesterday was my half birthday. So
I love
yes.
half birthdays as a Leo.
Yeah.
Every January 24th, I'm there like, it's my half birthday.
It's my half birthday, right? But it was like an accident. I woke up and I just felt different. I knew I needed a massage. I was getting a massage period. But I was like, you know what? Let's make a day of it. Then it turns out I actually went to the same place that I celebrated my birthday this past year, and I had the best time, and the service is always great. But anyway, I was just feeling more of my masculinity and really just enjoying that and settling into that on a new level, because I think a lot of my attention has really been on like the sacral and more feminine principle and all of that the last, I don't know, definitely the last couple of months. And I've just been like, I've been really studying Eros. I've been going in. I've been going in. So I've been in the lab. I don't quite know what it's going to be yet, but I've just been living and experiencing all of that. But yeah, I felt something shift. So, check with me in a couple months. But I really only work on inspiration at this point. I only work on inspiration. I only work when I'm called, and I don't even know how it works, but it works. Sometimes I'm like, Keylee, when is the last time you quote unquote went to work? And it'll be like, oh, it was 2 months ago. Really? Interesting. So I only work on inspiration now, and I don't feel any pressure, and somehow it really works out. So I'm accepting the gift. I love being able to live. I feel very secure in that. And when I enter into a different period, I'll enter it. But that's beautiful. That's me. I'm living my power.
I love it. It's giving freak to genius. It's giving channel of power. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. And I can attest to how powerful. How many times have we said powerful? Don't take a shot every time we said powerful in this episode. It's very dangerous.
Be in the hospital. Yeah.
But your tracks really are. I love the question asking piece of it, because it's like a lot of times I'm listening to it when I'm sleeping. As I said, I make it go off at 3 a.m. on my phone. But when I have spent the time listening to it during awake hours, I do get something different every time, because the questions are present. And the favorite thing about the subconscious mind is if you ask your subconscious mind a question, it will answer.
Unfailingly. Unfailingly.
So beautiful. Okay, this is actually the last two questions. These are really short and sweet. I'm just trying to create a culture of gratitude. So my last two questions are, what are you loving IRL right now in real life? And then 3 things you appreciate and or are grateful for today. And that will be
Ooh. What am I loving in real life? I've been I used to really like this band. It's random. I used to really like this band in high school. Was it high school? But I hadn't listened to them in a while. So I started I was just in the airport and I started listening to them again, and like I discovered this is so dark. I discovered that one of their newer albums, and I figured out one half of the band had passed away. They're like, the band is called Low. I don't know if you've heard of them. It's kind of like very like, kind of, I'm like swaying, but it's I don't know. they were partners, and they were like childhood sweethearts, and
Mm.
they make music together, and their harmonies are just like things of beauty. So I just always really liked them, but I just discovered their last two albums. So I've been really loving that. I don't know if that answers. Oh, I'm loving spa treatments, that too.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
Yes. And things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for a roof over my head. I rate that very, very highly. Um, I am grateful for my family. I've been really watching the dynamics continuously shift. I've just been feeling overwhelming gratitude and love and appreciation for who they are, just as they are.
Mhm.
And that's been a blessing. I am. Say you're grateful for Ireland. I'm grateful for Ireland. Yeah.
I love that.
Shout out to Ireland. Also, shout out to Trinidad. We gotta be spread the love.
I love it. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Keylee. I will put the link to your product suite and your socials in the show notes so people can go follow you. You always share like jaw-dropping Scorpio rising insights on the socials. Um, and they're so good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Keylee.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful for this. This has been a
So grateful.
pleasure.
This has been
I
so
always love talking to you. So.
And thank you for everyone listening. Have the yummiest day.